Hello, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another video. I really hope this video becomes helpful to people who are looking for houses because, see, as a professional tenant in the UK, I have moved 4 times after coming to the UK, and it's only been 2 years. So I'm pretty much an expert, and I almost learned everything, the difficulties, and I understand how much of a pain it is to find the right property and to shift. And it's a common tradition for international students in the UK who becomes graduate to find a place, and also even after finding the place, move from one place to another in almost every 6 months, because we pack, we leave. That's what we go. That's what we do. We pack, unpack, and it's a cycle. I don't even know if I'll be living in this house for another 1 year. Like, yeah, let's not waste and get to the topic. So here I'm going to become your big sister and like your go-to person for all the advice regarding everything related to renting a house in the UK, because I have lived in a house share, I have lived in a property with friends, I've lived in student accommodations, I've lived in almost every other work. So I'll tell you everything. So a little backstory on why I am an eligible person to tell you about all this information. So I used to live in student accommodation because where I did my masters in Uni of Bath, and that's where I used to live. And almost everyone who lived in Bath and who did their course in Bath moved out of the town, and they went to like places across the UK, because Bath is equally expensive as London, but with far less accessibility and other facilities for, especially when it comes to the employability. It's not the best town, so almost all of us moved to places like London, Reading, Manchester, Birmingham, or the big towns in the UK, because I was far more affordable, far more accessible, and there were more opportunities to get a job. So we had to leave our part-times, or we had to look, of course, we had to look for new part-time jobs because we didn't have full-time jobs in the new towns. We had to settle down, and then we had to figure out a lot of things. So we had a few miss and hits because of all these reasons, but I'll make sure that if you watch this video, you might not a lot of things, and you know what you need. And so this is the video, so keep watching. So I've made notes, so to be professional, and also because I like doing my research and making notes so I don't miss out on anything. So this is again another point why you should watch this video. Okay, I'll tell you about everything that you need to know before renting a property and after renting a property. So this is like everything. Okay, so there are mainly 3 types of properties that you can rent in the UK. One is a house share. So basically that property will be maintained mostly by an agent, and there'll be like 3 to 6 or 7 rooms in that house, and each room is rented to an individual tenant. So you will sign a contract for that one room that you're taking. You will either have a common attached bathroom, it's an ensuite, or you will have a shared bathroom, and also the kitchen would be shared. The utility spaces and the common areas would be shared, but the room is for yourself. So the contract is signed for that one room, and you probably wouldn't know who the other 5 tenants in the house is. House are. And then the other one is where you can rent a studio. So studio is where it's mostly it's a one single room. You would know it's a one single room where you would have a kitchenette and then a bed and every other facility. So the contract is for that studio. So it's one room, and there would be no much shared areas that you would have with the other tenants in that building. The other one is where you rent an entire property for yourself. It may be 2 bedroom to how much ever bedrooms that house has. So you sign the contract with you and your friends, and yeah, that's an entire different story. So these are the main 3 types of properties that you can look for when you are planning to find a space or to rent a place for yourself in the UK. Now, when to start house hunting? It's always best if you start your house hunting at least 1 to 2 months before. So if you're looking for a house share, 1 month is a safe time, because most of the house shares only start getting advertised when the move-in date is a month before. So you have ample time to go for viewings, and you won't have you can't go for viewing on the weekdays. So it mostly needs to be a weekend. So 4 weeks time is a good time, and there's enough time to sign the contract and know the verification and the back checks and everything else. So 4 months is the minimum time, like ahead of time, that you should start your house, and if you're looking for a house share. And if you're looking for an entire property with your friends or a group of friends, or if you have someone up to buddy up with, start your house hunt 2 months back, because mostly a month or two before the landlord or the agent who manages the property advertises the property. So again, that's the paperwork is much a bit longer, and also you will have to arrange a lot of other utilities and other facilities in the house, because everything is going to be under your name. Sometimes if the property is managed by a landlord, a friendly landlord, then it's much easier. Things are much more straightforward. But if it's an agent managed property, the paperwork is a bit longer. So start at least 2 months before. And it's not like a cakewalk. It's a bit of a journey finding the house, going for viewings. You might not like it. You have to go for multiple viewings. The viewings might get cancelled. So things like that, sit with it, which you already know. So 2 months is a good time. So start your house hunt in 1 to 2 months time. And if it's very last minute, then Facebook community groups will actually be a good help. So send messages there. You will find your place there too. Now, where to look for places? Yeah. So if it's a very, very last minute house and you really need a house in 2 weeks, go to Facebook community groups. They would be a good help. And for house shares, the best place to look is Spare Room. So Spare Room has both a premium and an other version. So it's just that to send messages to the landlords. Some of the landlords will be like, okay, only if you have a premium account, you can send a message to them. So it's like a few bucks you have to pay them to send messages. So I have really paid it. But then, to be honest, if you start your house and early, again, like 2 months, you wouldn't have to make any payments to them to send inquiries to the landlords and figure that out. It's much smoother. You can save a bit money if you start early again. So Spare Room is that go-to place if you are looking for mostly a house share, and also if you want the entire property for yourself. The other place is Open Rent. So on Open Rent, it's mostly the landlords that address the property. It's not agents. But on Spare Room, they're also like most of the house shares which are managed by agents would also be there, and also the ones managed by landlords. It's a mix of both that you find there. And the other places on the market, Rightmove, Zoopla, these interfaces are much better, I should say. And these are the properties mostly managed by agents. There would be a third party sitting with it. And the viewing and the booking is much more, there's an actual process to it. It's much more formal process sits with it. Yeah, those are the other places. And of course, as I said, and Open Rent is also one of the other. Did I say Open Rent? And I think I already did. So Open Rent is where the landlords advertise the properties. I might have said that. I don't know. Oops, I have short-term memory loss. Okay, and then of course the Facebook community, the Facebook pages. And so if you go to like so the Reading community page on so I live in Reading, so there's a Reading community page on Facebook. There might be like Hempstead community pages, Maidenhead community pages, Milton Keynes community pages. So join there and ask them if you are aware of any property, so they can be like, the locals can also give you a bit of a help there. So that's another thing. Next, what to consider when choosing your locations. Okay, this is actually a very, very important thing, and most of the time when you're in a hassle, in a hurry, because you're really left with like 3 weeks and you just can't send. Because I have been there, like when I was looking for properties and I did not really find enough people to buddy up, and people were still confused on even which city to move. It was such a stressful situation. I did not consider about what to consider when choosing a location, because I was so worried I'll be homeless. I will be on the streets. You won't. So that's what I'm telling you. Listen. First basic thing that you should be aware about is the commute. On the ad, it will say like 20 minutes to the railway station. 20 minutes by what? 20 minutes by bus. So that's one thing. So how far it is from the railway station? Do they have a nearby bus stop? And how frequent is the buses? How frequent is the buses from that bus stop to the city center? And is it in a commute, as in is it a walkable distance to any of the following places? Is it a walkable distance to the city center? Are there any nearby stores or any other retail parks nearby it? Because if you're in a new town and you need a part-time job, I'll tell you, looking for a part-time is equally hard as full-time job. Who lives in the UK fully knows it, and who haven't and was like, coming to UK is a fancy, nice idea. It's not. that's a topic for an entire different video. But looking for part-time jobs is equally hard, and you might have to agree on social hours. For example, like in a new town, and you don't want to depend on anybody for money, and you have to get a part-time job as soon as possible. The go-to options are, of course, hospitality and retail. So the fast food chains, they tend to employ you really fast, and then of course the supermarkets, and sometimes you would have to take shift like that ends at 3 a.m., or maybe shift that starts at 6 a.m. in the morning. And on Sundays, if you have a 6 a.m. shift, you might not get a single bus. So you have to either walk or take a cab, and cabs can be expensive. So there's a lot of things to consider. And also, another thing is that if you're looking for full-time jobs, you will have interviews scheduled. So if it's in the city, you will have to go there, and also manage your part-time to manage your time. The list is really long. So always make a list of things that you want. So if you're somebody who doesn't want to commute a lot, and also don't want to spare your time for the commute from your home to your workplace, look for places near to city center. It's a bit more expensive, I agree, but then if you're renting an entire property with your friends and you're not looking for a fancy place, you might be able to manage. But these days rent is pretty high, so do your calculations there, do your own math and figure it out. But always make sure you are aware about the time that you would need to commute from your place to the city center, because most of the jobs are in city center. There might be retail parks, also look for the closest retail parks. That's another place. But then to retail parks, mostly there is no direct bus. You will have to walk half distance, half in bus, half walk. So it's most like that, because retail parks are mostly on the highways. Yeah, so now you know. Now it's your decision, it's your call. Next topic is contract terms. I can tell you about that. So because if you're moving to this new town, or if you're in the old town, and if you are looking for a full-time job, you would look for jobs anywhere in the UK. That's how it is. Most of the graduates are very desperate, because getting a job is not easy, and getting a full-time job is not easy at all currently in the current economy. So you are willing to take jobs anywhere, and so you tell the employer that you're willing to relocate. So if you have to be willing to relocate, you will have to leave the house that you just rented, which means you have to break the contract, or you have to exit the contract. See, that's why I'm here. So when you rent the first property after you complete the course, always rent it for a shorter contract term. So if it's actually directly maintained by a landlord, again, a nice landlord, he or she might agree for a 3 months tenancy or 4 months tenancy. But most of the landlords do agree for a 6 months tenancy. In most of the cases, the minimum term is 6 months. But then if you fail to find such a contract, you can and the only option is a 12 months tenancy, ask them for a break clause. So what is break clause? I'll tell you. So break clause is where your contract is for 12 months, and you tell them that you want a break clause after 6 months. So anytime after 6 months, you can leave the property with a notice of 1 or 2 months, depending on what the landlord agree on. And most of the landlords agree on this particular thing of adding a break clause. So the contract will be signed for 12 months with a break clause. So every single time you sign a long-term contract, whether you already have a job or not, make sure you have break clause in the contract. It is very much needed. You don't know what's going to happen next in your life, so you need it, and that will save you a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of stress. Actually, it does. And for someone who's looking for a job, who says who's willing to relocate, these are the few things. Because if you get a job, you can tell the employer that, see, my contract ends in these many months, so I need some flexibility in commuting to work, because these are the reasons, and once these are over, I'll definitely. So if, say, you live in Swindon and you got a job in London, and in your third interview, the employer might ask you, like, so see, you would have this much commute, are you okay with it? So I'm like, I'm happy to do it until this period, and after that I'm willing to relocate, so you don't have to worry about it. You will have to tell all those things, because we desperately need the job, and these are the things that you will end up agreeing on. So play the other side of the game very safely, because it's difficult to make money, but it's very easy to lose money once you become an adult. Other thing, deposit. You would already know. So deposit, these topics will be quite new for someone living in student accommodation, because life is so good when I was living in student accommodation, and I started to feel like an boring adult after I became a tenant outside of, like, when I started finding houses and living in the other way, because then you start worrying about council tax, bills, rent, lot of other things. Things break down. There is no university portal to go and complain. You will have to inform the agent or a landlord and wait, and or you have to fix it yourself. So it's a different story. So other thing which I was not really bothered was a deposit. So you have to pay a deposit of the deposit is actually your 5 weeks rent. So when you find a property, make sure you have enough money. So again, if it's a nice landlord, they might negotiate. We will be able to negotiate the deposit. The 5 weeks can be reduced to 4 weeks. So there's some kind of a, whereas it's more flexible in the other way. But if it's again a house share managed or a entire property managed by a third party or an agent, there's no negotiations happening with the deposit. It's always 5 weeks rent. So put aside the money, start saving your deposit early, or try and figure out and get your deposit ready from the time you start looking for a house, because once the paperwork starts, it's best if it can go very quick. And you won't really have a lot of time because the packing, the hassle of packing would be there, the moving part, there's a lot more things you'll have to figure out. So best if you have saved up or figured out the deposit. So in a town like Reading, the rent is usually from, if it's shared bathroom, it starts from a decent £600, and it can go up to 1,200 for a studio. So you know, so keep aside 1,500 if you're looking for a fancy facility. If not, keep aside at least a 900, so you're always on the safe side. If you have extra, it's always fine, you can spend it on other things, but try keeping aside £900 at least as deposit, because you'll have to pay 5 weeks rent. So that's it is. And once the contract ends, of course it'll be returned back because it's a deposit. But in most of the cases, you would only get, they will of course deduct 5 to 20% of the deposit for wear and tear and other, they would find reasons, or some issues would be there, so they would deduct it. And yes, also one thing that you all should know about contract is always read your contract, read it fully, because if it's managed by an agent like Winkworth, Haslett, so these are the popular agents in Reading, and like Prospect, Parkers, or Hamlet, or any of these, Romans, they will list every single thing in the contract. They will have an inventory check done before you move in, so you will get the list of items. So some checks are there that you need to do. Should I do it in this video? Should I do another video? I'm not very sure. I can just quickly say what it is. If it's needed another video, tell me in the comments. I can do an entire video to help you with all that things. As I said, I'm an expert tenant. So go through your inventory, see every single thing that's in your property, because when you move out, there might be like some marks which they have not mentioned in the inventory, which already exist when you move into the house. But when you move out, they'll say, oops, there's a mark on the wall, I'm gonna charge you for it. So flip the mattress, don't have to flip the mattress, but check every single thing that's listed on the inventory. Make sure everything is all right, and if there's any changes that need to be made, get back to them in the first week, make an edit, read your contract, read what it says. If with changing of the electric bulbs or some pipes or some plumbing, will they cover the expense, or do you have to do it? Who will check the boiler? Who will check the radiator? Is it them or is it me? What are the amenities they're providing? What are the electronic gadgets, as in what are the appliances that they're leaving behind? Read it thoroughly. Read it. What are the terms? Read the terms and condition. It might be a 13 pages paper, but read it. It's going to save you in some or the other way. It looks like a nerd thing to do. It's like a boring thing. Yeah, it is boring. Once you start adulting, it is boring. Take it. It's here. I'm telling you the truth. It is boring. So just read it. Yeah. So that's about contract, that's about deposit, and the other thing is a guarantor. So if you're a first-time renter who doesn't really have a renting history, you would need a renter. And also most of the landlords or the agents look for so you become eligible to rent a property without a guarantor if your annual income is 30 to 40 times more than the rent, your monthly rent. So if it's less, you would need a guarantor. So guarantor is someone who has a full-time job. It's someone, again, who classify the criteria of 30 to 40% who earns 30 to 40% more than your monthly rent and who lives in the UK. They doesn't have to be a British national, or they don't have to have a ILR. They just have to have a job that satisfies this particular condition which you failed, and they would just sign it. So if in case you fail to pay the rent, it's they who will be held responsible. They have a bit of a check. Some people do a guarantor check, some people just get the name and address and their signature, and that's it. But it's not a very risky relationship that you would have, just as you are a responsible renter and you know how to do your things. It's just that for the paperwork you need a guarantor. So if you're a first time renter, you possibly would need one. That's one of the mandatory things. So if you have any friends who have a full-time job here, or if you're any acquaintance, or maybe your dad's got some friend, or your mom's got a friend or a relative, you might have to get in touch with them for this one reason. Maybe you might never contacted them so yet in this 1 year of being in the UK, but now you would have to. So that's about guarantor. It's just paperwork, nothing. Yes, it's just that. Other thing, yeah, I already did say about reading the contract. Yeah, that was the other point. Yeah, okay. And then, so that's, you sign the contract, you move. So this is pretty much it about finding a house. And with moving, of course, there are third parties, there are companies that help you with moving. There are like moving vans, so you book them for a day. If you're moving with your friends, you live in one particular place and you're moving to a new place, and all of your friends are moving together, it's best if you book like a mover. It's much cheaper than actually taking things on your own. So you can just also book that in at least a week in advance, so it can save some money. It's much cheaper if it's booked early rather than booking a day or two before. So you book it for a fixed, you tell them how many boxes you have, how many bags you have, and you schedule a time with them. They'll come pick your places and drop it to the next place. And you just pick a few bags and leave, and by the time you reach there on the agreed time, they would deliver it there. You can collect it. So that's another thing. And there's a lot more things you would have to know about utility bills, managing your council tax and all of that, but this video is already extremely long, so I'm not covering all that in here. And if you need me to help you with all that or give my advice and insights on how to make the whole process easier, tell me in the comments and I can definitely do another video. So that's it for about finding a house. I hope I touched almost everything you need to know in that entire journey, and I hope I was clear and I was somewhat helpful. So oops. So if you found this video somewhat helpful and if you liked it, please do, if you enjoyed watching it, please do like, and if you're new to my channel, do subscribe. And also you can follow me on Instagram to know how my life is like in the UK. Bye!